The quiet cruelty of it. There are wounds that announce themselves, and there are wounds that whisper. The first kind leaves a mark that anyone can see. The second kind moves through the air like a change in pressure. It hurts without spectacle. The world, being fond of spectacle, rarely notices the second kind. Yet it is the quiet cruelty, the small, sanctioned humiliations, the daily diminutions, that wears the soul down most thoroughly. Quiet cruelty does not raise its voice. It does not strike. It does not even look violent. It presents itself as ordinary procedure, as civility, as the natural rhythm of how things are done. It asks for patience while erasing a person by inches. It is the smile that ignores the substance of what you said, the delay that insists it is not a refusal, the bureaucracy that calls itself order while consuming the hours of a life. It happens wherever structure outweighs empathy, wherever the machine becomes more real than the beings who keep it running. The power of quiet cruelty lies in its plausibility. Because it is small, it can always be denied. The person who feels it cannot easily prove it. There are no bruises to show, only the fatigue of being perpetually unseen, perpetually corrected, perpetually required to nod at what is wrong. This is how quiet cruelty reproduces itself. It trains people to doubt their own perception. If you question it, you are too sensitive. If you name it, you are making a scene. If you endure it, you confirm it. It relies on this circular trap, the gentleness of tone that conceals the indifference of heart. It thrives in institutions. Every large system cultivates a kind of polite brutality. Rules, forms, protocols, all of them designed to keep order, can easily become instruments of erasure. A human voice says please and thank you while withholding the thing that matters. A smile replaces listening. And because the gesture looks proper, no one can be accused of harm. The cruelty hides inside decorum. It wears good manners like armor. Quiet cruelty is not limited to hierarchies of power. It exists also in friendships, in families, in intimacies. It appears when care turns into obligation, when the effort to seem kind replaces the effort to be kind. Someone promises to call and does not. Someone forgets again and apologizes again and believes the apology resets the clock. What corrodes the heart is not the forgetfulness itself, but the knowledge that it will happen again, that the other has grown comfortable with your disappointment. Philosophically, quiet cruelty belongs to the category of the ordinary evil, the kind that requires no hatred, only distraction. Hannah Arendt spoke of the banality of evil, how immense harm can arise from thoughtlessness rather than malice. The quiet cruelty of daily life works on that same principle. It does not intend pain. It simply does not care enough to prevent it. It is the absence of imagination masquerading as normalcy. There is also a metaphysical version of this cruelty, the one that occurs between the self and the world. You know what is true, you see the pattern, you speak, and the world answers with indifference. It is not that the world argues. It just keeps moving, oblivious, and leaves you holding the knowledge like a stone that no one believes is heavy. To live with that awareness, to know and yet to be overruled by inertia, is a subtle torment. It is the feeling of being alive in a reality that insists on its own wrongness. The opposite of quiet cruelty is not outrage, but recognition. Outrage has its place, but recognition heals what outrage cannot touch. To recognize another's experience, to pause long enough to listen, is to undo the invisibility on which this cruelty depends. That is why small acts of acknowledgement, an honest word, a genuine apology, a gesture of attention, can feel disproportionately powerful. They restore the sense that the world can respond. They reintroduce echo. There is also an internal antidote, the discipline of clarity. Quiet cruelty feeds on confusion. It wants its victims to question themselves, to wonder if they imagined it. Clarity refuses that confusion. It says this is real. It does not require validation from the perpetrator or the crowd. It keeps its own record, even if no one else will read it. The one who practices clarity becomes their own witness, preserving the fact of what occurred. That, too, is an act of resistance. Quiet cruelty is cumulative. Each instance seems trivial. Together they shape a landscape. A single denial can be shrugged off. 100 of them form a geography of dismissal. After enough repetitions, a person begins to anticipate the next refusal before it arrives. That anticipation becomes a kind of armor, and also a kind of prison. To protect oneself from further hurt, one lowers expectations. But lowered expectations become self-fulfilling. They allow the cruelty to continue unnoticed. Thus, the victim becomes an accomplice, not by choice, but by exhaustion. And yet, even within that exhaustion, there remains a spark of resistance. Every time someone mutters, "This isn't right," under their breath, the machinery loses a little of its inevitability. Quiet cruelty depends on collective sleep. Wakefulness, however small, interrupts it. The person who stays observant, who keeps the internal account, is already defying the system's logic. They are saying, "I still see what you pretend not to see." That seeing is the beginning of freedom. The quiet cruelty of the world cannot be eliminated by policy alone, because it originates in the human tendency to look away. Its cure must begin with the opposite tendency, the willingness to look closer, even when it is uncomfortable. To look at another person and not through them. To feel the weight of one's own words before speaking. To let attention itself be a form of justice. There will always be systems, always hierarchies, always friction between the personal and the procedural. The test of a society and of an individual is not whether these exist, but how much quiet cruelty they conceal and how often someone has the courage to interrupt it. A simple acknowledgement can be radical. To say you're right when someone is right. To say I'm sorry when you have been careless. To say I see you when someone is slipping from view. These are small sentences, but they tilt the axis of the day. Quiet cruelty thrives on the assumption that small gestures do not matter. The truth is the opposite. Every unnoticed act of disregard shapes the moral climate. Every small kindness repairs it a little. The question is not whether we can build a perfect world, but whether we can keep the ordinary one from growing colder. The task is vigilance, not perfection. To stay awake to the texture of one's own actions, to the silences that follow them, to the ways in which comfort can become complicity. In the end, the quiet cruelty of it is not a single thing, but a pattern, a frequency of indifference humming beneath the noise of daily life. To hear it is painful. To stop hearing it would be worse. For in that listening begins the possibility of change, and in the act of naming it, the first faint sound of mercy returning to the world.